And this gentleman here, in real life, Jimmy Knox. In our lifetime, this is Reverend James. And I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Well, if you don't know me, David and I go back with a lot of us here over 40 years. And David was sort of the inspiration for a tradition that came out of his 40th birthday. And in those days, we were young and pretty wild, and we sort of laughed at the inevitable because we never thought it would happen. So we started the tradition of roasting everybody on their 40th birthday, 50th birthday, 60th birthday, and so on. And so we did one for David way back on his 40th birthday, and we've been doing it for everybody in our group ever since. And David asked me to do something for him and sort of align with that tradition. And the last thing David would have wanted was anybody to gather and have a sorrowful occasion. What David wanted to be remembered and his friends to enjoy was the spirit of his life. And that's what I've tried to capture here. And I'm going to read this to you, but this is called a Requiem for a Genius. We assemble today as there's a tribute to pay. Our dear friend David has died. I was sad when I heard that the end had occurred, and I have to admit that I cried. Our hearts may ache, but the memories in his wake are seeds of the things that matter. His actions are praised, but the question is raised: a genius or mad as a hatter? Every legend in his time avoids the light of the lime, so David was hidden from view. And most of us folks were aware of his jokes and astonished at the things that he knew. A legend rarely agrees that he did it to please. Usually, they're not even aware. But as I look at his past, his antics and his life was a precious affair. He had his own technique, strange, so to speak. His reputation was certainly earned. His mind was unique and worthy of a peek, and I'll tell you some things that I learned. He was adopted, you see, before the age of 3. And he actually picked out his brother. Now, personally, if it was me building my family tree, I'd have picked out somebody else.
And how many times did he tell me?
Because he was cool, he excelled in high school, especially in chemistry class. And before anyone knew it, he'd learned how to brew it and putting half the school on his ass. Throughout the years, he perfected his beers, and he drank them while avoiding the bars. He protected their chill when drinking his swill by a sweat sock on his mayonnaise jars. When he wasn't around, he could have been found venturing to Scammons Lagoon. Shunning the Winnebago, he preferred El Borrego and sinking his axles in a dune. In photos quite stunning, he and Crispy were sunning, shirtless and next to their boat, while the marlin they fought, and eventually caught, nearly sank them in waters remote. His 1.5-ton Ford left no place unexplored. Baja was a playground so dear. And like a buffalo that was grazing, his vehicle amazing, nothing could stop it in low gear. He saved, single-handed, a couple that was stranded, assisting, according to the code, with a rope that was strong, but way, way too long, he towed them right off of the road. David failed to observe on an inside curve, made the rope pull them off the drop, and they swung across a ravine behind his machine, dragging them back to the top. The pransome Hints, so chivalrous, was totally oblivious, continuing along the trail. Well, the couple was shitless and screaming till spitless complexions were pasty and pale. Malcolm always enjoyed that David was employed as one of the first on board. Success was convoluted, but failure was eluded, for the genius was out of his gourd. He was an expert in dirt, but he was prone to get hurt, much like an adolescent teen. And Malcolm exclaims that his workman claims were the most unique he had seen. When a June bug attacked, he fought back and smacked, and tumbling onto his back, and being crippled and bent, he crawled the cement, collapsing on the porch of a shack. The poor woman inside thought he was trying to hide, proceeding to call the police. David tried to explain he was in so much pain that he wasn't disturbing the peace. On another occasion, he received an abrasion when he flew off the post hole digger. He was standing on top when it took a little hop, but too bad. He should have been bigger. While perk hole inspecting, he wasn't expecting a pony to come up and nudge him. And he tumbled head first. While struggling, he cursed, and it took many men to unbudge him. And, lest we be liars, I must acknowledge his pliers and all of the uses he invented. With the best of intentions, fixing his inventions, that wonderful mind so demented. With some rusty wires and his trusty old pliers, he could fix anything that was broken. And he never afraid to call out a spade. In fact, he was utterly outspoken. And another of his capers got his picture in the papers. Always a story to regale. It was a 10-pound pike that he caught in a dike by grabbing with pliers in the tail. They were always in his pocket, like a princess with a locket, even one plated in gold. Of course, they're for dress, but a damsel in distress would have seen those pliers unfold. He could make kindling for fires, fix flat tires, or anything emergency requires. From washers and dryers or deep fat fryers, David had a need for those pliers. And apparently, God's plan needs a handyman. So David's recruited from the miners. Since Riffle's been there, God's been pulling his hair, trying to placate the whiners. As Secretary of Affairs, Mike's insisting repairs, and he's a pain in the ass in the realm. Between heaven and hell, in apartments there dwell infinite problems to whelm. So as our dear David waits outside of those gates, waiting for his sins to absolve, God's voice booms out in a celestial shout, "Houston, we got problems to solve!"